My Hobby, Part 2. That night, Leighton was waiting for Sue and I on the porch. "Nice evening," he said as we approached. He shook hands with me and kissed Sue. Never understood these bastards who slobber over casual female acquaintances. He showed us inside. The furnishings revealed much of what I had already suspected about the Leightons. The furniture looked as if they had purchased it as brand new sets from a showroom. The paintings on the wall were of the kind you'd find at a tourist stop art gallery. He led us into the kitchen where his wife, a heavy-set lady, was putting the finishing touches on the meal, which apparently was some kind of lamb roast. She smiled up at us. "I'd shake your hands, but my hands are greasy," she said shyly. "I'm just finishing up. Stanley, take them out to the porch for some cocktails and appetizers." "I'll help you," volunteered Sue, leaving me in the clutches of asinine Stan. I followed Leighton to the porch, where the evening breeze had blown Mrs. Leighton's cocktail napkins everywhere. While I helped him pick them up, he was already inundating me with questions. Was I a Yankees fan? What did I think of the Knicks? Had I ever been married? What exactly did I do for a living? My replies were short and curt. It was none of his business, and I wanted to make sure he disliked me enough to never invite me over again. Sue came out all smiling to announce that dinner was ready. In the dining room, the lamb roast was the center of attention. I'd been a vegetarian ever since I ran over the Belgian baker. "I'll take the wild rice and vegetables," I said. "What about some meat?" Leighton seemed perplexed and looked to his wife for guidance. "I'm a vegetarian." "Wow, George, I could have sworn you were more of a hunter," he said. How little he knew. Throughout that woeful meal, the Leightons proved that they were desperately trying to assimilate into the American way of life. They spoke about catalog shopping, baseball, reality television, and the latest celebrity gossip. When we were finished, Leighton yawned, and after punching his own chest announced, "I think I had too much." We started to make our way to the living room. I'd be damned if I was going to undergo another of Leighton's almost too friendly grillings. I think I'd already mentioned that we'd have to call it an early night. I lied. I've got to go back to the city early tomorrow. Some unfinished business to take care of. "You'll do nothing of the sort," Mrs. Leighton said. She turned to Sue. "Are you interested in limited edition figurines?" "Love them," idiot Sue said. "Come back into the kitchen. I have a collection I'd like to show you." Leighton showed me to a chair. I wasn't going to let you out of my grasp that easily. I laughed, but his face remained unexpressive. He turned around and walked over to the liquor cabinet. "I'm not always this bubbly. I suffer from depression. Started when my brother died. Your brother. He died when I was in Australia, and he was in New York." "I'm sorry," I said. He smiled. "Yeah. Pity I never got to know him better." He handed me a drink. "I'll show you his picture." He retrieved a framed photo from the bookshelf. There he was, the face of one of I'll call them victims for want of a better word. I hoped he didn't detect the surprise in my face. "No, Georgie, it isn't a coincidence." "What are you talking about?" I got up. "Don't play silly with me, Georgie." He pushed me back into the chair. Reggie had written home about his friend George Blake. Unusual for Reggie to even have a friend. Come to think of it. Now, years later, when I heard that George Blake had moved into this town from the city, I wondered if you could be the same George that Reggie had been so fond of. I started asking questions. He stopped and smiled down at me. In the distance, I could hear Sue and Leighton's wife talking and laughing. Peggy and I introduced ourselves to Sue, and then one day, she just happened to mention your antique revolver collection. Well, that got me thinking. He took a gulp of his drink. "You see, Georgie, the police said my brother was shot by Valentin Christoph Schilling, a very rare revolver." He smiled again. "That Sue is certainly a sweetheart," he said. "When you went down to the city, she was such a bonny lass, cleaning your place so that when you came back it was all neat and shiny. So we got friendly with her, and I'd pop by and borrow sugar or bring some homemade biscuits that the missus made for her. It wasn't hard to find a moment to pick up your Valentin Christoph Schilling. If you ask me, I think you're a bit sick to have kept that old German pinfire all these years." I tried to stop myself from shaking. This was a game of control, a mind game. I had to play it cool. You've done a great job. Very, very good. The stuff of an Agatha Christie novel. But you know as well as I do that a court wouldn't listen to this bullshit for 5 minutes. He poured himself another drink. Let us not get into any unnecessary details involving courts just yet. He took a long breath. I don't hate you for killing him. I'm not out for revenge. Wouldn't do me any good if you went to prison. But I do need something from you. You can't prove any of this, I said, and got up to leave. If that's how you want to be about it, mate, all the better for me. I was trying to do you a good turn. I could probably make a killing if I went to the police and then secured a book deal. Distraught man brings brother's killer to justice. He laughed. And just to show you how serious I am, he walked over to the side table near the wall and picked up the phone. Yes, dear, may I have the police, please? I panicked. Wait, I said. I realized it was futile to deny it. If I had to, I could always rid the world of one more pushy Australian, but I had to buy time. What do you want? What do I want? Security, Georgie. Security. The Leighton boys were born chancers. It's been moving from one place to another and always finding myself up to my ass in debt. I had to leave my country and go to Kuwait. That didn't work out, so Canada, and now here, blackmail. I'm not a blackmailer in the classic sense of the word, Georgie, so I am going to show you my bank statement and you can make an offer and I'll either nod yes or no. I don't want to look at your bank statement. Tell me how much, and I'll speak to my broker in the morning. Attaboy. I knew I'd grow on you. He smiled. You tell him to sell. You tell him to sell. Georgie. I sat up late that night thinking. I couldn't kill him myself. There was motive there. The police would be on to me in an instant. There went all my planning on Jane Masterson. Couldn't do her in anymore. Forget her. Leighton was the priority. After a restless night, I sat in my kitchen, slumped over a cup of coffee. I had to find someone who could do away with Leighton. Then it came to me. We had the Black Widow herself, living just a few miles away. If anybody could help me, it was she. I spent the rest of the day planning. There wasn't a trace of dread from the night before. I had my path ahead of me, and I knew what I was going to do. As part of my planning for Operation Jane Masterson, I had discreetly been tailing her for a few weeks. It turned out she was a creature of habit. She dropped the little monster off at school every day, then stop at Red's for breakfast. The next day, I got up earlier than usual. I was waiting for her with a cup of coffee when she came in. I put up a hand and waved, got up, introduced myself, and asked her to join me. She laughed and said, "Well, I've had breakfast with uglier guys." I smiled and said, "I hope you're not fond of heavy breakfasts." I didn't want her to throw up when I gave her the news. The waitress took our order. It turned out she had a huge breakfast every morning. "Weren't you the guy talking to Maggie at the store the other day? You look familiar to me." "Yes, that was me. You may not know this, but I've been waiting for years for a chance to meet you." Her eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" "Phoenix, 1983. Gun goes off at your home, and you're minus a husband, but you inherit a lot of wealth." "Miami, 1990. Your second husband chokes on a medicine bottle cap, another dead, wealthy husband." Need I go on? She stared at me coldly. "Why are you bringing this up? What the hell do you want?" "If you want to cut to the chase, it's not money I'm after." "Is this some sick joke?" She asked. "I need a favor from you. I want Stanley Leighton." What are you, some kind of a weirdo? You want Stanley Leighton. What have I got to do with that? I want you to do to Stanley Leighton what you did to your 3 husbands. I couldn't bring myself to use the actual words. You're crazy. First of all, I'm not admitting to anything. For all I know, you may be a cop trying to set me up. I'm not with the police. I smiled. Then stop harassing me. Or you'll call the police. Suddenly, I started to relish the role of blackmailer. Call them. They'd be very interested in the information I have about the role you played in your husband's deaths. The Black Widow stared at me coldly. "What's Leighton to you?" "Let's just say he's being a bit unneighborly," I replied. Our breakfast arrived. To my surprise, she picked up her fork and knife and attacked the plate. Between mouthfuls, she asked, "If I do this, what guarantee do I have that you're not going to be hounding me till I die?" "My word as a gentleman," I extended my hand to her. She waved me off. Okay, but let me tell you something, Mr. Blake. I'm lethal. If you try anything, I'll be after you. I didn't say anything. What do you say in response to that? She took a few dollars out of her bag, placed them on the table. But I had to say something. When you're in the blackmail business, it does no good to your reputation to appear tongue-tied. Make it short and sweet, Ms. Masterson. Don't worry. I have Daddy's old World War II revolver, no serial number. That'll do the trick. She was so decisive, so different from Stella. We met the next day at Red's again. I supplied her with the details, gave her the day and time of Peggy Layton's bridge evening, and a drawing of the layout of Layton's home. Told her that he takes a nap in the evening as he watches the underachieving Yankees on television. Being a fair-minded man, I gave her a week to complete the job. I planned a trip down to the city for that time. I told Layton I was having a meeting with brokers, of course. In the city, I caught a few shows, went to a couple of museums, and visited some old friends, my ironclad alibis in case something went wrong. On my way back upstate, I was looking forward to being home. It was a glorious day, and I'd be rid of Layton. As I drove up the street to my house, I saw an ambulance and 2 police cars driving in the opposite direction. Had she left it to the last minute? I let myself in. When I opened the front door, I heard the vague murmur of voices coming from the living room. I realized it was the television. It sounded like a baseball game. The room was dark, lit only by the flicker of the television. I could make out a hunched figure sitting on my favorite armchair. He turned when he heard my footsteps. "Enjoy the city, Georgie," he said. "Hope you don't mind, but I picked up your keys from Sue's purse the other day. Thought I'd make myself at home." My mouth was dry. I couldn't form any words. "Lazarus is walking," he said, then cocked his head toward the front door. No, that wasn't my body being taken to the morgue. It was Jane Masterson. She decided to come over and take a shot at me. "That woman is mad," I blurted. He rubbed his eyes, then started to scratch his abdomen. His shirt was dotted with fine bloodstains. Right while I was taking my evening nap, I find this crazy lady over me with a pistol. She fires and bang. She's dead. It didn't turn out as you expected, did it? What are you talking about? As I said this, Jane Masterson's words were ringing in my ears. "Don't worry. I have Daddy's old World War II revolver. No serial number. That'll do the trick." The damned idiot didn't know she had to clean the revolver. "I know you set me up, Georgie," he said with a deliberate nod. "And the stakes are higher now." It was checkmate for me. Yes, you could say Stanley Layton helped me fall off the habit. He was a pretty reasonable blackmailer, and as the years went by, I developed a grudging respect for him. His shy wife died shortly after, and soon it was just a question of giving him handouts. For the past couple of years, we've been in the same nursing home. Stanley and I would play dominoes and laugh at the overly patronizing nurses. But poor Stanley died last year. I've been stuck in this place for a long time, and my memory is failing me. I mean shorter memory. What I did yesterday, I can't remember today. I don't think I'm very welcome here anymore. It seems they can't wait to get rid of me. My hearing is still stellar, and the other day I overheard a few nurses saying, "He just won't die." Can you imagine how much the government is paying to keep him alive? What's the point? But I'm not going anywhere. She walked into my room. Fake smile. Sweet as saccharin. "Hi, Mr. Blake, honey. How are you feeling this morning? Are you in pain? Would you like some pain meds? You know, maybe you should speak to Dr. Craig about stopping treatment. It's probably time, you know." Looking at her, I realize it's never too late to rekindle an old hobby. 2 comments.